The universe was a vast, unforgiving place, but no one was prepared for the day the SOS was sent. A single panicked transmission from a far-off world, a frantic cry for help that would unravel the very fabric of intergalactic relations. But what no one knew was that this distress call, this desperate plea for assistance, was not coming from a peaceful colony or a helpless civilization. It was coming from the Chithawk, a race so violent, so terrifying, that even their allies kept their distance. And now, they were in trouble. The ship, a massive, unblinking behemoth of red-tinted metal, streaked through the stars at a pace that would have left most ships disintegrating into stardust. The Deathworlder fleet, an elite task force composed of the most dangerous species from across the galaxy, was on its way, summoned by that very call. The crew, a mixture of humans, Nornox, Rith-AK, and Verzel, settled into their positions with an eerie quiet. None of them had been briefed on the specifics. None of them knew the details of what awaited them. But they all knew one thing: the Chithawk, as dangerous as they were, had never begged for help before. General Rax Norin, the towering human commander of the Deathworlder fleet, stood at the bridge, his fingers running over the holoconsole as he analyzed the incoming data. His sharp eyes, narrowed with suspicion, flicked to his officers. Every face on the bridge was a mix of grit and tension, the kind of team who had seen too much to be caught off guard. "Sir," Lieutenant Arya Kane, a razor-sharp Nornox operative, spoke up. "We're getting conflicting signals. The distress beacon is genuine, but it's scattered. Someone's tampered with the transmission." Rax's fingers froze. His mind raced. Tampering? Why? What was going on here? Rewind the signal. "Let's see who or what is behind this," he barked. The ship's communication officer, a quiet Rith-AK named Shizer, worked his console, and the signal replayed with harsh static. Then, a crackling voice broke through the noise, garbled but unmistakable. "Uninvited. They, INV. Destroyed. Goliath sector. They are all dead." The transmission cut out abruptly, leaving nothing but static and a deep, unsettling silence that spread across the bridge. Every crew member exchanged looks. The message was clear enough: something had wiped out the Chithawk forces, but what? Who? And why had they sent such a desperate call to a fleet known for its lethal precision? Rax's voice broke the silence, steady but filled with the weight of the unknown. "Prepare to jump. Full speed ahead. Whatever it is, we'll be ready for it." As the ship's engines rumbled to life, the crew took their positions. They had seen the worst of the galaxy, the monsters, the worlds turned to war zones, the endless conflicts. But the Chithawk, they were the galaxy's boogeymen. What could possibly have them in a state of such panic? "General, you think it's a trap?" Arya asked, her tail flicking nervously behind her. "It doesn't matter," Rax replied, his voice sharp as ever. "If it's a trap, we'll take it. We're Deathworlders. This is what we do." The fleet dropped into hyperspace, the stars bending and warping around them as they hurtled through the void. The crew, battle-hardened and ready, sat in tense silence, each of them wondering what lay ahead. The Chithawk had always been the predators, never the prey. To see them so vulnerable, it was a puzzle none of them could quite piece together. Hours later, they arrived in the vicinity of Goliath sector, a barren region on the edge of the galaxy, far from any major trade routes or inhabited systems. The sector's vast emptiness seemed to stretch on forever, broken only by the wreckage of ships, scattered debris, and the lingering echo of destruction. As the fleet emerged from hyperspace, a vast, twisting mass of dark energy appeared on the scanners. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. Rax's brow furrowed. "What in the stars is that?" "It's a black hole," Shizer said, his voice trembling with disbelief. "But it's not right. It's alive." The whole bridge went still. The black hole, a cosmic entity capable of devouring everything in its path, seemed to pulsate with an unnatural rhythm. Something was feeding off it, something far more dangerous than the Chithawk had ever encountered. As the fleet closed in on the anomaly, they saw the remains of the Chithawk's fleet, scorched, broken, and scattered like broken toys in the wake of an unseen force. But the real horror lay in the heart of the destruction, a colossal, monstrous creature, its body writhing and shifting within the dark energy of the black hole. It was massive, too massive for any of them to fully comprehend. Its form was made of living darkness, its eyes glowing with malevolent intelligence. Everyone brace yourselves, Rax shouted. This is no ordinary battle. We fight or die, and it's up to us to show this thing what Deathworlders are capable of. With that, the battle began. The creature lunged toward them, its vast tendrils reaching out, and the fleet fired everything they had in a desperate attempt to push it back. Yet the creature seemed impervious to their weapons, its massive form shifting and reforming as though it existed beyond the laws of physics. As chaos erupted around them, Rax realized the stakes had just escalated far beyond anything they had anticipated. They weren't just fighting for the Chithawk. They were fighting for their very survival. And the universe would watch as the Deathworlder fleet fought the impossible. The battle raged on as the fleet tried to push back the monstrous creature, its tendrils lashing out and knocking ships aside with terrifying ease. The Deathworlder fleet, known for its brutal efficiency, was struggling against a force that defied every rule of combat they knew. The creature, though massive and seemingly impervious to their attacks, pulsed with an unsettling rhythm, its dark form constantly shifting and regenerating as if it were part of the very fabric of space itself. Rax Norrin gritted his teeth, watching his crew fight with the same grit and determination that had carried them through countless other battles. But this was different. Nothing they had faced before could prepare them for something like this. The very laws of nature seemed to bend and twist around the creature. And in the midst of it all, the black hole loomed, a constant reminder that if they lost, it wouldn't just be the Chithawk or the fleet that would perish. It would be the entire sector. "General, we're losing ships," shouted Arya Kane, her sharp voice cutting through the chaos of the bridge. "The creature is absorbing everything we throw at it. It's feeding off our energy." Rax didn't need to be told twice. The gravity of the situation settled in. They had to find a way to counteract the creature's powers, or they'd be devoured like everything else that had come before them. The only question was how. "Shizer," Rax barked, turning to the HFY officer. "Can you disrupt the energy field around the black hole? Anything that might stop it from absorbing our attacks." The HFY, his insect-like eyes widening in concentration, tapped his fingers over his console. "There's a faint signal coming from the black hole. It's like a pattern, but it's not natural. It's almost like it's being broadcast from the center. I could try to hack into it, but I need time." "How much time?" Rax demanded, his fists clenched. "Maybe 5 minutes," Shizer said, his voice tight with urgency. "If we don't stop it by then, the entire fleet will be consumed." Rax didn't hesitate. "Give him 5 minutes. Everyone else, hold your positions. We fight until we can't fight anymore." As Shizer scrambled to decode the black hole signal, Rax's eyes swept over the battlefield. The creature's tendrils lashed out again, disintegrating a nearby ship with a single swipe. The ship's crew barely had time to react before the massive, shifting form of the creature surged forward, targeting the next victim. "Arya, target its head," Rax ordered. "We need to get its attention." The Nornox lieutenant wasted no time. Her sleek, agile ship darted through the battlefield, evading the creature's tendrils with impossible precision. The Deathworlder fleet's ships, despite their power, were no match for the creature's unnatural abilities. But they fought with the tenacity of creatures that had survived on the harshest planets in the galaxy, knowing that they had nothing to lose. Arya's ship launched a series of high-powered missiles, each one streaking through the dark void toward the creature's head. But just as they neared their target, the creature's form rippled and the missiles fizzled out in a burst of energy. The creature seemed to feed off the energy, using it to grow even more powerful. "General, we can't break through." Arya's voice came through the comms, frustration heavy in her tone. "Nothing we do is making a dent." Rax's mind raced. This creature, this thing, it wasn't just a monster. It was a force, a living, breathing anomaly that existed outside of the rules they understood. Conventional weapons weren't going to work. They needed something unconventional. "Everyone, listen up." Rax's voice boomed over the comms. "Forget the conventional attacks. We're Deathworlders. We're not here to play by the rules. We're here to win. Focus all energy on the black hole. We need to disrupt its center, not the creature. It's feeding off the black hole's energy, and that's our only shot." The crew's eyes lit up with understanding. If they could somehow disrupt the black hole, maybe, just maybe, the creature's power would be neutralized. They had no time to waste. "Scheiße," Rax called, his voice a command, not a question. "Do it now." The HFY officer's fingers flew over his console, his mandibles clicking in rapid succession as he worked to hack into the black hole signal. The minutes felt like hours, the seconds stretching out with unbearable tension. Around them, the battle continued to escalate, the fleet's ships being picked off one by one, the creature growing ever more formidable. "Almost there," Scheiße muttered, his voice strained. "Just need to break through a few more." Suddenly, the ship lurched as a massive energy pulse surged through the hull. The creature had struck again, its tendrils raking across the ship's shields and sending sparks flying. But amidst the chaos, something changed. The black hole's energy began to fluctuate, its pulsating rhythm shifting to a discordant beat. It was working. They were getting through. "Rax." Arya's voice was urgent. "The creature, its form is destabilizing." Rax's heart pounded in his chest. "Everyone, brace yourselves. Keep firing at the black hole. Don't stop until it collapses." As the crew fired everything they had at the black hole, the creature's form began to tear apart. Its tendrils writhed in agony as the pulse of the black hole's energy faltered and faltered again. The Deathworlder fleet pressed their advantage, every shot they fired pushing the creature closer to its breaking point. But then, just as victory seemed within their grasp, the unthinkable happened. The creature let out a terrifying roar, a sound that echoed across the battlefield. Its form surged, trying to protect the heart of the black hole from their assault. It was a desperate move, and one that would cost it everything. "Keep pushing!" Rax shouted, his voice a roar of defiance. The creature's end was coming, and he would make sure of it. The battlefield was chaos incarnate. Explosions rippled through the dark void of space, echoing in the cold expanse as the Deathworlder fleet pressed their assault. The creature, now visibly weakened, fought with an intensity that belied its crumbling form. It lashed out with desperation, its tendrils flailing and its mass shifting as though trying to hold together in the face of imminent collapse. But it was too late. The forces attacking it, each one fueled by the relentless spirit of Deathworlders, had begun to overwhelm it. Rax stood at the helm of his ship, his eyes locked onto the swirling maelstrom of destruction unfolding before him. His hands gripped the command console tightly, his knuckles white. He could feel the tension, the weight of the lives in his fleet, all hinging on the success of their gamble. He knew that this was it. The final stretch. If they didn't break the creature now, they'd lose everything. "Arya, keep those fighters on the creature's right flank." Rax barked. "We need its attention away from the core." On the bridge, Lieutenant Kane's voice came through, calm but strained. "On it, General." Her Nornox ship danced through the void, its sleek form cutting through space with incredible speed. The Deathworlder's fleet was no longer acting with the calculated precision of soldiers. Now, they were throwing everything they had at the creature in a frantic last-ditch effort to win. Ships fired cannons, missiles, and energy beams at the creature, most of which evaporated upon contact with its shifting mass. But every failed strike brought them closer to their goal. Every attack destabilized it further. Scheiße, the HFY officer, continued to work furiously at his console, his movements almost too fast for the human eye to follow. His antennae twitched nervously, his alien mind racing to decipher the final pieces of the signal emanating from the black hole center. "General," Scheiße said, his voice strained, "I've almost got it. Just one more push and I can disconnect the black hole from the creature. If we do this right, it'll lose all its power." The seconds stretched like eternity as Rax's mind calculated every possible outcome. He could feel the creature, this living force of darkness, struggling against its inevitable collapse. But what would happen if they succeeded? What would be left of the creature, or of the black hole? Rax's thoughts were interrupted by the violent tremor of his ship as the creature lashed out again, striking the hull with a force that rattled the very bones of the fleet. Sparks flew across the bridge, alarms blaring. The crew scrambled, trying to stabilize the ship, but Rax knew they couldn't afford to slow down. "We're losing shields," shouted one of the officers. "We can't take another hit." "Hold steady," Rax ordered, his voice unwavering. "Just a few more minutes." On the screen, the black hole's pulsating rhythm grew erratic. The creature's form was flickering now, its tendrils struggling to keep shape as it fought to hold onto its power. The Deathworlders were winning, but not without cost. "Scheiße," Rax growled, his heart pounding in his chest. "Do it now!" The HFY officer didn't hesitate. His fingers danced over the controls, sending a final burst of energy toward the black hole's heart. The ship shuddered violently as the blast shot forward, and for a moment, everything was still. Then, the black hole's pulse slowed. The massive tendrils of the creature, which had been wreaking havoc moments ago, faltered. It was as if the entire battle had come to a stop, a strange, eerie quiet settling over the battlefield. For a fleeting second, Rax dared to hope that they had won, that the creature was dead. But he wasn't foolish enough to think it would be that easy. The creature let out a final, horrific shriek that tore through the fabric of space itself. Its form seemed to ripple, shifting violently before it collapsed inward, drawn into the black hole that had been its source of strength. The creature's energy surged one last time, but now it was no longer feeding off the black hole, it was being consumed by it. Rax's eyes widened as he realized what was happening. "Scheiße!" he shouted, his voice tight with urgency. "Get us out of here, now!" But it was already too late. The black hole, its energy source cut off, began to destabilize, pulling everything into its gravitational grip. The battlefield, once a chaotic swirl of fire and destruction, became a vortex of death. The Deathworlder fleet was caught in the pull, ships shuddering as they were dragged toward the center of the anomaly. "We're caught in its gravity!" Scheiße screamed from the console, his voice filled with panic. "All hands, brace for impact!" Rax shouted, his command absolute. The ships began to slip toward the center of the black hole, the immense gravitational force tearing at their hulls. Rax could see the fleet, the surviving ships struggling with all their might to break free, but it was a futile attempt. The black hole was too strong. The Deathworlders had fought bravely, but now it seemed as if the very force of the universe had conspired to undo them. Yet, amid the chaos, a sudden realization struck Rax. A faint signal, no, a whisper, reached him, barely perceptible through the mayhem. It was Scheiße, his voice cold and calm, despite the threat surrounding them. "I've found the signal. It's not just a black hole. It's a controlled singularity. Someone is guiding it." "What?" Rax barked, spinning around to face the HFY. "Who's controlling this?" The screen flickered as Scheiße worked furiously, his antennae twitching with intensity. Then, with a sharp hiss of realization, he spoke. "A race, ancient, predatory, masters of gravity manipulation. They call themselves the Vark. They've been using the black hole to trap and feed off everything in its path. They are the ones who tampered with the Chithawk signal. They needed us to be distracted while they completed their harvesting." Rax's mind raced. The battle, the creatures, the black hole. It was all part of a bigger scheme. And the Deathworlders had been nothing more than pawns in this deadly game. "Then we finish it," Rax said, his voice cold with determination. "We're not dying today." As the ships of the Deathworlder fleet scrambled to stay alive, they realized that the battle wasn't over yet. They hadn't just been fighting a creature. They had been fighting an ancient, calculating enemy that used the chaos of the universe to manipulate and devour civilizations. The real war had just begun. The gravity well of the black hole pulled tighter, the vast void twisting and bending the very fabric of space. Deathworlder ships groaned under the strain, their engines fighting against an unstoppable force. The fleet, though battered and on the edge of annihilation, had been given a new purpose. They weren't just trying to survive anymore. They were fighting for something larger than themselves. They had learned that this battle was only a fragment of a greater conflict, a war not against a mere creature, but against an ancient and terrifying race that had played the universe like a twisted game. Rax Norin stood at the command console, his jaw clenched as he processed the enormity of what Scheiße had just revealed. The Vark. A race so old, so cunning, they had turned entire galaxies into their feeding grounds. For centuries, they had hidden in the shadows, manipulating black holes, feeding off entire civilizations, and leaving no trace of their existence except the destruction they wrought. But no more. The Deathworlder fleet had been thrust into this cosmic chess match, and now they were moving to checkmate. "Scheiße, how do we stop them?" Rax asked, his voice low, but fierce. The HFY officer's mandibles clicked nervously. He was still working feverishly, eyes darting across the controls. The fleet was still being dragged toward the event horizon, but now there was something new in his movements. A sense of clarity. "There's a way, General. The Vark are controlling the singularity through an ancient device embedded within the core of the black hole. We disable it, and the black hole collapses. The Vark's power over the anomaly ends." "But," Scheiser's voice faltered for a moment, "the device is in the most dangerous part of the black hole. The event horizon itself." Raxa's mind raced. They didn't have the time to carefully plan. They had to act, and fast. The Vark were playing a game with lives far beyond their reach. "We have no choice," Rax said. "Scheiser, find us a way in. Arya, get those fighters ready. We're going in." The crew's eyes shifted, their focus hardening. The odds had always been against them, but now the stakes were impossible to ignore. They weren't just saving themselves. They weren't just saving the Chithawk. They were saving the entire sector, and possibly the entire galaxy, from becoming another piece of the Vark's twisted puzzle. "We'll need a shuttle," Arya said, her voice steady despite the tension. "Something fast and small enough to get close without being torn apart." "I'll rig one of our fighters," Rax replied, voice filled with the edge of a commander who knew the gravity of the decision. "You take the lead. We're going to get inside that black hole, and we're going to destroy the device." Arya nodded, understanding the weight of the mission. The entire fleet was going to risk everything to end this threat, but it would be up to her and a small team to deliver the final blow. "Scheiser," Rax said, glancing at the Rithak officer once more, "how long do we have before the fleet is completely destroyed?" Scheiser's mandibles clicked rapidly, working through the data. 5 minutes, he said, his voice sharp with the urgency of their situation. "If we don't collapse the singularity before then, the fleet will be swallowed whole." Rax turned to his crew. "We fight to the end. This isn't just for us. This is for every life out there that's at the mercy of the Vark." With that, Arya led the charge. Her fighter, modified for this suicidal mission, shot through space like a comet, weaving between debris and the writhing tendrils of the dying creature. The battle that had raged was now a fight for survival, with the black hole itself becoming the final battleground. The fleet, those who could still move, followed, providing cover fire and trying to break free from the pull of the gravitational force. The shuttle Arya piloted ripped through the darkness, a streak of brilliance as it came within reach of the black hole's event horizon. For a moment, it felt as though the entire universe stood still. Time, space, and gravity seemed to stretch and warp, as though the very concept of reality was about to fracture. The shuttle's shields flared bright against the intense radiation, but it held. Arya's hand was steady on the controls as she guided the shuttle closer to the center. "General," she said over the comms, "we're almost there. Prepare for the final push." On the bridge, Rax watched through the viewports as the shuttle neared the event horizon. The entire fleet was now dangerously close to the black hole's edge, ships tumbling in and out of the anomaly's grasp as they fought to stay in position. But they couldn't wait any longer. "Do it now!" Rax roared. Arya and her crew raced toward the device buried in the core of the black hole. With a final, desperate push, they launched a payload, an antimatter bomb that would collapse the Singularity's control device and end the Vark's manipulation of the anomaly. It was a one-way mission, but it was their only shot. The bomb's final trajectory was a blur. For a moment, Rax thought he saw it, the device at the heart of the black hole, pulsing with cold, ancient energy. It was there. Right there, at the very center of the universe's most dangerous creation. Time seemed to slow. The bomb hit its target. And then, nothing. The universe held its breath. The Deathworlder fleet braced for the inevitable end, but it never came. Instead, a ripple passed through the event horizon. The black hole, which had been pulling everything into its insatiable maw, began to shrink. It collapsed inward with a sudden, deafening silence, the unnatural energy that had held it together flickering out like a dying star. The Vark's control was broken. The Deathworlder fleet, battered and scarred, had won. For a moment, all that could be heard was the heavy breathing of the crew. The immediate danger was gone, but the weight of their victory hung in the air. They had faced the unimaginable, fought an ancient enemy beyond comprehension, and emerged victorious, not just for themselves, but for the entire galaxy. As the black hole vanished into nothingness, Leaving nothing but the shattered remnants of the creature and the remaining debris, Rax Norin allowed himself a single grim smile. They had survived. But, more importantly, they had proven that Deathworlders were a force that could not be extinguished. Rax turned to his crew, his voice firm. This battle is over, but the war isn't. And we'll be ready for whatever comes next. As they returned to the remnants of the fleet, their victory was far from sweet. They had come close to losing everything, and yet they had won. The universe had been spared another predator. And the Deathworlder fleet had been forged in the crucible of the most impossible battle yet. They had overcome, not through strength alone, but through sheer willpower, unity, and the understanding that no force, no matter how ancient, would ever break them.